Hi, I'm Yaakov Katz, and welcome to another episode of the Jewish People's Podcast by JPPI. This week marks 1 year since the ceasefire that was supposed to bring calm to Israel's northern border went into effect. Instead, in the 12 months that have passed, we've seen a steady and dangerous escalation between Israel and Hezbollah, culminating this week in the elimination of Haytham Ali Tabatabai, one of the group's top military commanders and a key architect of its operations against Israel. To help us make sense of what this moment means, the anniversary of the ceasefire, the elimination of Hezbollah's top military commander, from a strategic, military, and political perspective, I'm joined by Sarit Zehavi, a former lieutenant colonel in the IDF and the Intelligence Corps, and founder of the Alma Research and Education Center in the North. Sarit brings years of experience studying Hezbollah's capabilities, its deployment along the border, and its evolving doctrine. She understands this organization like few others. Few people understand the northern arena, including Syria, better than Sarit. And today, she walks us through what the recent operation, the airstrike and the bombing and the Dahia, the Hezbollah stronghold of Beirut, means. What does it signal for the months ahead? How will Hezbollah likely respond? And what does Israel need to do to prepare as the region edges into another dangerous phase? You'll want to hear what Sarit has to say. Stay with us. Sarit Zehavi, it's great to have you back on the podcast. Always a great opportunity to be able to get your perspective, especially on a week like this. And we're talking because not only is this a year since the ceasefire went into effect between Israel and Hezbollah, but it's also the week, and I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly, but Haytham Ali Tabatabai, was eliminated, the top number 2 guy in Hezbollah, top military commander of Hezbollah, eliminated in an Israeli airstrike in the Dahia neighborhood of Beirut. I mean, nothing's really been a ceasefire over the last year. So if you could kind of just make some order for us of where we stand now with the elimination of Tabatabai, and what does this mean as we look to the future of what's going to happen between Israel and Lebanon?
So if we're looking a year backwards, the war ended with an agreement that was supposed to bring to the disarmament of Hezbollah in South Lebanon, at least in South Lebanon, and later maybe in a gradual process in all of Lebanon. There was a new mechanism that was created with a much deeper involvement of France and United States around this goal. And Israel was to cease its fire, while Lebanon was to disarm Hezbollah. None of that happened, unfortunately. Kind of a golden opportunity that we identified a year ago is being missed as we speak, since Lebanon is not disarming Hezbollah. When we started to ask questions,
the golden opportunity, though, explain what is the golden opportunity? The weakening of Hezbollah and giving Lebanon, the government, the opportunity to do it?
Yes, it was to bring a new prospect to Lebanon, to limit and to neutralize the strength of Hezbollah inside Lebanon in the political system, of course, the military power of Hezbollah, etc. It was missed. It is being missed because Lebanon is still playing the old games. Old games of Lebanese government means that they are focusing on statements, like there was an amazing statement of the Lebanese government during the summer that they ordered the army to disarm Hezbollah in South Lebanon and to present a plan.
I remember that. Yeah, it was a cabinet decision at the time.
Yeah, right. Everybody were deeply impressed by that. And I said, okay, statements is fine. What about proofs? We want to see proofs for the disarmament of Hezbollah. And when we started to ask questions, how come we don't see enough proofs? How come we don't know where the Lebanese army is disarming Hezbollah? Tell us the names of the towns that were already cleared. The Lebanese army is entering into private properties, into houses, into olive orchards, for example. The answer was no, they are not entering into those places. So if they are not entering into those places, who exactly is disarming Hezbollah? This is where the weapons are. What is being done with the weapon that allegedly is being found? How come there are no photos of those weapons? How come we don't know what are those weapons? What kind of rockets were seized allegedly by the Lebanese army? We didn't get any public information around that. If there was any information, it was not published. And eventually we saw that the Americans themselves said, well, it's not happening. The Lebanese army just doesn't deliver. We still have senior officers inside the Lebanese army that are collaborating with Hezbollah.
But wait, sorry, Sarit, I want to stop you there for a moment, because what you're saying is, it's interesting. I mean, we know that they're not doing the big job, but I've seen reports of where American officials are quoting the Lebanese army, or maybe it's, talking about how they've seized, I don't know, thousands of something.
10,000. They said 10,000.
10,000. So you're saying nothing?
No, I'm not saying nothing, but I'm saying that it's not disarmament. It's evacuation of debris, of munition.
It's a drop, and it's a drop in the bucket of
it's
what
a drop. It's a drop in the bucket, or unuseful munition, or munition that they found a little bit, but it's not disarmament. Look, when IDF cleared the towns next to the border, going tunnel to tunnel, house to house, and taking off the weapons were presented in an exhibition. The weapons that were brought were presented in an exhibition. Each finding was documented by the IDF and published with pictures and videos of where these were found. We don't see this kind of information being published by the Lebanese army.
Right.
So at first we were told that, they don't want to create too much buzz in Lebanon. They don't want to, it create an internal situation. But afterwards, gradually we understand that there is no disarmament. When they do want to publish photos, when something is truly happening, photos are being published. This is an era of everybody with his cell phone can be a reporter and publish videos, even if he doesn't support what the Lebanese army is doing. We should have some proofs going out. So the fact is that nothing is happening, and if something is happening, it's very little, as you said, drop in the bucket. While meanwhile, there is tons of information of the rehabilitation efforts of Hezbollah. Okay. First and foremost, we see it as a mirror picture when you look at the IDF strikes. IDF carried out almost 700 strikes since the beginning of the ceasefire, like during the past year in Lebanon, about half of them in South Lebanon, south to the Litani River. And those were very precise strikes, either against the military operatives of Hezbollah, about 300 of them were killed in the past year, or against the storages, and against manufacturing facilities, and against smuggling of weapons. So all of that is still happening.
But 300 terrorists killed is also a drop in the bucket to some extent. No? I mean,
yes.
Hezbollah's force, if we look at the last 2 years, right, they were believed at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, 60,000 fighters, maybe more. What are they at now in terms of their power, right? After we had a war with them for about a year, it stopped last November. We've had this continued mowing the lawn situation. Where do you estimate their capabilities? Because you said they are rebuilding. What are they at today? Are they back to where they were October 7th, 2023?
No, completely not. And I have few things to say. First, yes, mowing the lawn is the right expression. I want to add one more. Uprooting the roots, okay? Mowing the lawn, that's what we had done during the year. Taking off Ali Tabatabai, the head chief of staff, this is something more thorough, and we're not doing that every day, but this is definitely uprooting the strength of Hezbollah, targeting its leadership, and creating more chaos in the organization and more difficulties with regard to how do you run this militia with hardly commanders. Most of the commanders were killed. So if I'm looking at Hezbollah today, comparing to October 6, 2023, even though they are investing a lot of efforts in rehabilitation, it is very slowly, it is with a lot of difficulties. They don't have enough money. Most of the investment is towards the military effort rather than the civilian efforts, which damage their relationship with their natural base. It's not, again, it's not a huge change yet, but for a long time, if this will continue, it can be good news.
When you name the military effort as opposed to the civilian effort, correct me if what you're saying is it's for the weapons and the training and the people, but it's not for the Shiite villages that have been destroyed.
No, they are not being rebuilt. I'm very happy that those next to the border are not being rebuilt, because once they will be rebuilt, it would mean that Hezbollah is back on the border. So this is not happening yet. I can say that with the smuggling of weapons, Syria is not friendly anymore. So it is happening, but not at the same scale that it's used to be. They need to adapt. Hezbollah is very busy in this rehabilitation process in finding ways to adapt. For example, instead of smuggling, trying to self-manufacture. Instead of cash, trying to bring the money through exchange offices. If you cannot operate freely south to the Litani River, let's move our centers of power north to the Litani River. These are all examples for adaptation. To get to the point of what Hezbollah used to be 2 years ago, it will take a long time, especially in a situation that they lost their leadership. Mm-hmm. So it's good news that they are not back where they've been. It's bad news that the Lebanese government is not doing enough. And that's why Israel is there, to make sure that we are not falling asleep again, and to make sure that the monster is not growing again.
Right. But let's just, say that Hezbollah, it might not be south of the Litani, but north of the Litani and even further north, they have still significant firepower with the ability to rain down tens of thousands of missiles that can strike inside Israel.
We segregated 80%. We believe that around 10,000, maybe a little bit more, are still in the hands of Hezbollah. Mm-hmm. Until the last day of the war, they launched an average of 100 rockets a day.
So from about 100,000+, they're down now to about 10,000, which is, give or take, let's say.
Rough evaluation.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not in there counting every single rocket. I want to ask, so about Mr. Ali Tabatabai. Okay, I'm not going to pronounce this well, but it's interesting. Israel has really done an incredible job at eliminating the top leadership of Hezbollah. Same with Hamas in Gaza, for that matter. But if we look at Hezbollah, really, Sheikh Nasrallah, his successor, the top commanders all throughout the war, and now this guy. Now, the question is, why him? Because until now, over the last year, the targets have really been what we said before, mowing the lawn. You said this is uprooting and the roots, right? So it's a deeper strike that obviously has greater significance. And my question is, because I've heard two narratives. One is it's to a further blow to Hezbollah, create that chaos that you mentioned, undermine their ability to rebuild, but also send a message to the Lebanese government, get your act together, start working. So is it one, is it the other, is it both of these?
Of course, both of these. You don't have to choose. You get both when you do something like that. And this is very important, and I hope you will do more. Terrorists around the globe should know that as long as they are busy with planning to kill us, we will be busy in planning to kill them.
How big of a blow is this, though? How important was this senior Hezbollah commander? I'm sure you've heard of his name until before. Most people did not. What's his background? Where did he come from?
This guy is busy in terror around the past 4 decades. Mm-hmm. He was all over the place, in Yemen, in Syria. He was one of the founders of Radwan Brigades. He was its commander.
The elite Hezbollah force.
Radwan Brigades, the Hezbollah elite unit that was planning to invade. Recent reports are saying that he became the head chief of staff after most of the military leadership was eliminated. And he is a very talented military commander of Hezbollah. He was. And dealt with terrorism for many years, and actually involved in the process of making Hezbollah transform from a terrorist entity to a military terrorist entity, or to a terrorist army with arms that are working all over the Middle East. And that's why it was very important to eliminate him, as you said, to damage the capability and to send the message to Hezbollah and to the Lebanese government. I personally less believe in messages, in the game of messages. I believe in hurting capabilities. And that's why I think we should do more. Every terrorist that is busy with terror should be eliminated. Doesn't matter if he's number 2 or number 20.
His involvement, though, is, it's interesting. He wasn't Israel tried to kill him before now, or it was just an operational window of opportunity that presented itself? How did he get away until now? We know also that the Americans had put a something of a $5 million or $10 million prize on his head as well. So what was their interest in him?
Look, I truly don't know whether we tried to kill him in the past year. I believe we did try to kill him during the war. Every assassination like this involves operational opportunity with situation assessment and approval from the political leadership of Israel. You cannot go to an operation at this scale without taking in consideration all the different implications around it, strategic implications, which are much more than just Hezbollah itself.
Of course.
All of that was, I believe, was taken in consideration. It's not a decision that is being made like this. It is, but at the same time, I definitely see the continuance policy and the change in the Israeli strategy or security strategy in all of its fronts, by the way, not only the Lebanese one, that basically saying, that's it, we are not going to enable any monster to grow. We will be much more proactive against terror. And luckily, for now, we are getting a green light from United States. I hope that this will continue. Again, as long as the Lebanese government performance is very poor, here in the Alma Center, we are not very optimistic about neither the capability or the willingness of the Lebanese government to respond differently and to do something different. They had a year, an opportunity to do it, and they didn't. I don't know if it will change.
Do you think, though, I mean, what's been interesting over the last year, and I totally agree with you that this new policy, this new security doctrine, to an extent, one of policy of preemption, as opposed to policy of containment, which is what led us to October 7th, is a breath of fresh air, and we can only hope that this continues long term. Although I think I would guess you'll agree with me, it's going to be hard to sustain this long term.
It's extremely hard, and not only for international reasons. It's extremely hard also for internal reasons, and there is a price for this policy inside Israel, because imagine us, people that are living next to the border, we hear those blasts in Lebanon all the time. On the one hand, if it will be quiet, we will start worry, because it would mean we are back to the containment policy. On the other hand, those blasts are not exactly relaxed atmosphere of northern beautiful Israel, and we want to go back to this quiet atmosphere, but at the same time, we know that quiet atmosphere means terror. So
no, it's very important what you just said.
This is what I'm trying to say, and adding to all of that, the price of being in high alert of the IDF for in many fronts for a long time. This means the drafting of reservists. It have implication on the society, on the economy, in many aspects.
Yeah, no, I think most people look at it as just Israel engaged in war and what that will do to our international standing. But what you're saying about what it does to us internally is dramatic and very important. I wonder, though, why has there not been a response from Hezbollah? Right. So over the last year, this mowing of the lawn. Okay, so we take out a truck, we take out a tunnel, we take out a rocket arsenal that's found in a building. We've now taken out their top guy. Why are they quiet? Why don't they respond?
Look, I'll give you two answers. First, yes, they have a priority. And their first priority is to rehabilitate. And they understand that if they will respond, it will damage the first priority, because Israel will respond and the rehabilitation efforts will be damaged. But on the other hand, what we learned from October 7th is that it will be difficult for us to predict their intentions. It will be difficult for us to predict when there will be the turning point that for their own reasons, they will decide to respond. There is a lot of pressure from inside Lebanon on Hezbollah to respond. As you said, they are not doing anything. 300 military operatives, more than 300, were killed in the past year, and they are not responding. So I cannot overrule the option that at some point they will decide to respond. By the way, all options are on the table. They can do it from the Israeli-Lebanese border, and they can do it anywhere else in the world. And we understand that. And that's why Israel has to be prepared to this option as well.
Yeah. No, it's definitely something to be concerned about. The getting back, though, to the Lebanese government. I mean, when we look at the end of the war in Lebanon, it was as if the ceasefire went into effect. We knew that Hezbollah was still there. We knew that they still had capabilities and fighters and thousands of rockets, as you mentioned. But with the Americans, and we had this hope, at least, or this plan in place, right, this new coordination mechanism of sorts, that the Lebanese army was going to take that action. You said they're not. What can be done to get the Lebanese? And you know what? I'll just add to it, Sarit, because there was also this period that people start talking about maybe normalization with Lebanon, the new government with President Aoun and Nawaf, the prime minister. Maybe we're actually, you got Morgan Ortagus, the U.S. envoy to Lebanon, and Tom Barrack, the ambassador to Turkey, who's also the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, who's working on Lebanon as well as on Syria. I mean, people start to talk about maybe normalization, maybe some sort of security arrangement. Who knows? I mean, all of that seems to have fallen to the side right now. Can this Lebanese government actually do something? And maybe we need to pull out of Lebanon to give them the ability, because the IDF is still holding positions in there. What do you think of all this?
I don't understand what's the connection between IDF presence on 5 small hills that are watching the borderline to what you just described. I truly don't understand the connection. It's just a nice excuse.
Well, it's the excuse that the Lebanese government makes, right? That the occupation, with the occupation, we can't do what we need to do.
This is just a nice excuse because they're not doing anything all over Lebanon, including South Lebanon, and we are only in 5 points which are next to the border. They're not even in depth into Lebanon. It's just next to the border, securing Israeli communities, putting Israeli flag on top of the hill. By the way, one of those hills I can see from my neighborhood, from my hometown. It means that it controls all over Western Galilee. And before there was an Israeli flag on top of that hill, it was Hezbollah flag on top of that hill. Right. So just to understand what all of that means.
Just to understand, right? if you don't mind just explaining it to people, because I don't think people fully understand. The border with Gaza, communities, the kibbutzim, were very close. Some closer, some a little further, but there was a short distance. With some of the communities in the Galil on the border, they are literally up against the border itself.
20 communities, around 20 communities in Israel are at the border. It means that the homes are feet away from the fence.
Feet away, not a kilometer, not a mile.
Not
feet.
A kilometer.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Feet, you stand inside the community, for example, in the kindergarten, and you see the border 200 meters from you, and you can stand in a house and you see the border 20 meters from you.
Right. So again, these hills that the IDF is controlling give it this vantage point and ability to protect these communities. I'm just trying to, give that.
Yes.
Okay, so go back to
protect and to make sure that Hezbollah is not on top of those hills.
Correct.
Because this is how the situation was just before the war.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going back to the Lebanese government.
And they are very small hills. It's a border of 120 kilometers. We are talking about on top of 5 hills.
Yeah.
Not mountains.
Not a big deal.
Okay. Small positions on top of small hills on the borderline. That's why I've said it's an excuse, and I welcome everybody who is listening to come here, to visit us, and to see it. And then to understand. Once you see it, you understand. Going back to what can be done, I have a long list of what can be done. Much more can be done. I'm not sure we will end up with the result that we want, but at least we should try. The first and foremost thing that we should do is to change the basic assumption that we can defer the military arm of Hezbollah from the civilian arm of Hezbollah. As long as we enable the civilian arm of Hezbollah to exist, we are enabling the military arm of Hezbollah to exist. This morning I saw a report that Thomas Barak, that you mentioned, told the Lebanese, let's get into a process that Hezbollah will be disarmed, but we will preserve it as a political power in Lebanon. If this will happen, we will end up with North Korea on the other side of the border, as dangerous as that.
It's like saying, I've happened to meet Ambassador Barak, and smart guy, nice guy, but that's like saying, you know what, Al Qaeda, we need to destroy the military wing, but they can be in the parliament of Afghanistan. I mean, it's
no,
absurd.
It is saying that they can be in the Congress of the United States.
Okay, or the Congress. Well, you're taking it even further. Right, 100%. I mean, it's
because
absurd.
It's on my border. When you say Afghanistan, what people imagine is miles away. Lebanon is 9 kilometers from me. It's not miles away. If Lebanon will become Afghanistan, this is existential threat for me and my family. We cannot afford it. And that's why we cannot accept the situation that we will sign a normalization agreement with the state that the strongest political party inside this state wants to extinct us. It just doesn't
can the LAF, Sarit, can the Lebanese armed forces, do they even have the ability to go up against Hezbollah? Because it's going to take force. They're going to have, people will get killed. People will get hurt.
I'm not sure they have the willingness to clash with Hezbollah. And I agree that clash is what it will take eventually. Because Hezbollah will not voluntarily give up its arms. It's not going to happen. They believe in the symbol of the weapon. And even if they state that they gave up their arms, what will happen in reality is that they will take over the Lebanese army. That's why I said the risk is you compare it to Afghanistan, I compare it to North Korea, it doesn't matter. The idea is that my greatest worry is that Lebanon will become Hezbollah completely. That's my greatest worry. And if we will enable Hezbollah to stay a political power, an economic power, a social power in Lebanon, this is how we are going to end up with. We cannot enable Hezbollah to be responsible on the recovery, rehabilitation, reconstruction process of the Muslim Shiite towns that were damaged during the war. We must create an alternative. That's, if you ask me what's the solution, that's the only way to do it, to create an alternative to Hezbollah in Lebanon. We are not creating an alternative. We are suggesting to eliminate one thing, which I'm not sure
what could the alternative be?
The other.
What could be an alternative?
Another Muslim Shiite party, a Lebanese government rehabilitating those towns and those places. I'm not talking those next to the border. This is too dangerous. But elsewhere, closing the schools of Hezbollah in Lebanon, closing the banks of Hezbollah in Lebanon, closing the supermarkets of Hezbollah in Lebanon, closing the gasoline stations in Hezbollah in Lebanon, which are designated in the United States as a terrorist entity, by the way, making sure that the only one who is providing services to the Muslim Shiite community in Lebanon is the Lebanese government that Hezbollah is not a member in, while today there are 2 ministers that were nominated by Hezbollah in the new Lebanese government. All of that is not happening. It's just not happening.
Tell us, what's the situation today between Iran and Lebanon? Iran was obviously the great benefactor of Hezbollah all these years, was giving, according to estimates that I've heard over the years, about $1 billion annually.
It's the statement of the Treasury Office of the.
Right. I'm guessing that's changed because the Iranians have their own issues right now. So how much money do we know what's transferred? And let me just add another layer to the question. Between the government of Lebanon and the government of Iran, I know there's also been some tension there.
Yes, there have been tensions, but at the same time, the Iranians made a strategic decision after the killing of Nasrallah that they are not going to abandon Hezbollah. Now, if you ask me, Hezbollah completely failed. Hezbollah completely disappointed the Iranians. Hezbollah even failed to protect Iran during the 12 days war. And while we were attacking in Tehran, Hezbollah did nothing. Like if I were Iran, I would abandon Hezbollah. But the Iranians are not thinking the way I'm thinking. And the Islamic Republic decided to continue to support Hezbollah and to be much more involved today, boots on the ground, making sure each time the Lebanese government is making this or that decision against Hezbollah, you see an Iranian diplomat landing in Lebanon, meeting with Naim Qassem, making sure that the day after there is a statement from Hezbollah to say we are not going to disarm. If I talked about solutions and I said that one solution is inside Lebanon against the civilian branch of Hezbollah, the second part of the solution is eliminating, taking off, getting rid, I don't know, you tell me, of the Islamic Republic of Iran. As long as there is a strategic decision there to support Hezbollah, to distribute the Islamic Revolution values, to cultivate the proxies of Iran all over the Middle East on the expense of the average Iranian that doesn't get anything from its government. And we know that the situation inside Iran is very difficult, but they still prioritize their military projects, whether it's the nuclear, the missiles, or the proxy militias. I don't see how we are going to have any strategic change in the Middle East.
What can the world do? What would you like to see more? You know, traditionally or historically, the United States and France have played the big roles in Lebanon. France, because of their historic connections, the U.S. obviously because of its regional role, but also been a supporter of the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, with training, with weapons, with money, of course. What would you want to see them do more of or differently?
First and foremost, changing the basic assumption. And today, the basic assumption is that to deal with I'll put it, if we compare it to a building, to deal with floor number 10, maybe floor number 3, but when are we dealing with the basic, with the foundations of the building? And the foundations of the building is, as I've said, is the radical ideology of Hezbollah, of Iran, and others. And as long as we are not taking care of this radical ideology, and we are enabling it to prosper, and we are encouraging it by saying, yes, let's have a political party, let's enable them to preserve their all their civilian infrastructures, we are enabling this radical ideology to bloom. And when we are enabling this radical ideology to bloom, by the way, it's not happening only in the Middle East, it's the same problem in France itself. We are not solving the problem. This is the first thing that needs to be changed in international community. And from that, we will be able to discuss specific actions, for example, closing the banks of Hezbollah, as I've said, the schools, etc. But as long as we disagree upon the foundations, while Israel is saying, look, you are enabling the monster to grow again, not only because of military issues, but mainly because the children are still being educated to hate the state of Israel. Now, we've learned the lesson from Hamas. We've learned the lesson from UNRWA. We've learned the lesson from Palestinian Authority. It's the same process, but different ideology. Because with Hezbollah, in opposed to Palestinian Authority, this is purely a religious idea.
No, but what you're saying is interesting. Yeah, no, it's interesting because what you're talking about, we often hear, and it's also, by the way, in the Trump 20-point plan vis-a-vis Hamas and Gaza, is that you need to have de-radicalization. And nobody really talks about de-radicalization with Hezbollah, or right. Lebanon for that matter. But that's kind of what you're saying, is that without the supermarkets, the schools, the banks, the civilian infrastructure, you can't take it apart. You can't say this is okay, but this is not. You have to take it all away. And we know that in Gaza, the education system has to change. The imams and the mosques have to change. The newspapers have to change, right? Alma, Al Mayadeen, all these news outlets that Hezbollah operates, they got to go too.
Right.
And we're just not seeing enough on that. Sarit, just before I let you go, one last question. You mentioned before that Syria is not what it once was as a conduit or a transfer point for weapons to Hezbollah. Is that because of the degrading of Syria's military, or is that also because of the new regime led by Julani, Ashara in Syria? Is that they're just not as closely aligned with Hezbollah as they were in the past?
They are not aligned. They are rivals.
Mm-hmm.
Al-Julani view Iran as an enemy. He is not interested in Iran having hegemony in Syria as it used to have. It is not interested in Hezbollah smuggling weapons into Lebanon from Syria, and he's fighting that violently. Where the problem lies? The problem lies that once he is doing that, he is identified as a friend. we share an interest with the attitude to Iran. I mean Israelis and Americans, with regard to his attitude to Iran and Hezbollah. That's correct. But at the same time, we are ignoring his past. He's not ignoring his past. Right. He's just very, very clever in hiding it. He didn't forget.
He just wears a good suit now, and that just looks better. A good
suit, a nice tie, and
he trimmed the beard a little. Right.
While he's wearing a suit and a tie, he nominated, you talked about his army, the commanders of most of the divisions, the head of intelligence, the defense minister, all have jihadi background. Mm-hmm. That's one example out of many to the fact that he didn't forget his past. He's not denying his past. He's just giving the right answers to those who are asking him in the West, and not asking him the tough questions, unfortunately. We should respect and suspect this person, collaborate according to interest, and at the same time not giving up our security measures and not paying with any security prices to his willingness to fight Hezbollah.
If, for example, Ashara said, I'm willing to do a security agreement with Israel, but Israel has to pull out because also there, Israel is holding on to, in southern Syria along the border, what's called the Syrian Golan Heights. We have positions there as well. He says, you have to leave those areas. What would you say in response to that? But in exchange, we get the security agreement with them.
No, security agreement is words. I want to know what guarantees on the ground, not agreement, on the ground, what kind of guarantees we are going to have if we will pull out from those places. For instance, boots on the ground of American soldiers. Is this something that is even worth talking about? I don't know. Who is going to make sure that those areas are not being used for terrorist activity? Because everybody's talking about Israel taking the buffer zone. I want to explain something. This area is not a buffer zone for 15 years. I'm not sure it was ever a buffer zone. Because this area is being used for terrorist activity by everybody, okay? Fighting each other and planning to fight us and sometimes fighting us. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Iranian proxies, Russians, Syrian army of Assad, Syrian army today. Everybody are out there armed, and we didn't enter until December 8, 2024. So once we enter, all of a sudden everybody is demanding that it will be a buffer zone. Okay, let it be a buffer zone. What guarantee do we have that nobody is going to launch an infiltration of terrorists from the buffer zone or alleged buffer zone into our communities, or rockets towards our areas of the Israeli Golan, as you mentioned? We want guarantees, and an agreement is not a guarantee in the Middle East, because there is a gap between signing an agreement to implementation of an agreement.
Yeah. No. Very, very interesting point. Sarit Zehavi, I want to thank you so much for joining me and being on the podcast. You know, first time I saw you speak was on stage at an APAC policy conference a number of years ago. And I said to myself, then I was the editor of the Jerusalem Post still, and I said, wow, she's impressive. She knows her stuff. And I actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was a few years ago. I don't remember exactly what year, but we got you on the list of 50 most influential Jews also at the Jerusalem Post. So I take a little pride in that, but really want to thank you very much for this great insight. Whenever there's something on Hezbollah, Lebanon, Syria, you're the go-to person. So thank you once again for being with me. Thanks for joining us in today's episode. As always, you can find us where podcasts can be found: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Times of Israel, and anywhere else. Share it with your friends. Give us 5 stars. Compliments help. It makes us feel good. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. We got a couple episodes coming. Interesting things, lots to talk about. We'll be back soon with another episode of the Jewish People's Podcast. Be well.